Hey, it's Tom, and I had some thoughts about air roasting and what air roasting, like in a popcorn popper or a fresh roast, should look like. Um, and I've been doing a lot of air roasting, a lot of testing of different batches under different conditions and different voltage and ambient temperature, as best as we can do in California, at least. So I wanted to show you some things that a conversation with a customer kind of made me think about. So here's some of the batches I was going to look at. We use these little deli tubs for our roast because we can stack them. We have so many. I just chose this spot by our Probat to look at. So the point here is to look at some different roasts from an air popcorn popper. Same for a fresh roast or a different type of air roaster, and see what we can, observe from looking at the roasted results. The first point I wanted to make is that lighting really matters. So here's two different roasts, and this is just kind of under the ambient light in the room. I can change that, just moving a curtain. But let me just turn on the overhead LED light, and things change quite a bit, like a lot more texture, a lot more comes through the dark brown color. And that's the thing with coffee, is it's all brown, and browns can be very hard to read. They're sort of light absorbing in different conditions. So even trying to see the texture and shape of the bean can be difficult. So we really like daylight balanced LED strip lighting, sort of like a commercial long string light. So let me back up and show you that these two roasts are really not the same at all. I think you can tell by the color now, but there's other things to look for in determining the degree of roast from a air roaster especially. Those things are the surface texture, the expansion of the bean, the size, because it increases as the roast goes on, especially with air roasting, and some other aspects of the shape too. So under this nice light, let's look here at is sort of a brown coffee. It was a coffee approaching first crack, and it didn't get there. So not only would this be a great coffee to give your grinder burrs a good workout, there's some things you can tell, like this has not necessarily entered first crack at all. It might have entered slightly. The first thing is that it's very small and tightly shut. The crease in the bean hasn't opened up on any of them. You might see that with a little pre-first crack coffee. You might see the crease open a little. And you also might see on a really nice dense coffee that's fully roasted that it still remains shut. That's actually a really good sign for a lot of coffees. But here, another thing to be looking at is the angle, these sort of flat beans with sharp edges. And part of that is the fact that it hasn't expanded. That may not make sense, this kind of sharp angle. Let's just sort of focus, let's say, on this one right here, this one right here, and then look at the coffee as it goes through the roast. So here's a roast that has entered first crack, has expanded. You can see the crease in the beans expanded a bit, but some people would find this to be a palatable roast. For me, it'd be quite grainy in the taste. This roast has quite a lot of development in it, and you can see the size, you can see the opening of the crease, and you can see the change in surface texture, like less marbling in the surface texture. And then we get to a City Plus full city roast. Now this one's been sitting a while. I actually did this early part of last week, so it's a week old, and these aren't for drinking, so I just left them open to the air. And what you see is the oil start to travel to the surface. What that tells you is not necessarily that this coffee fully entered second crack, but it certainly got close.
enough to start to fracture the coffee bean cellulose matrix. So a coffee bean is a seed, is part of a tree. It's like wood. And the wood has a sort of matrix of pockets that's as the roast continues, and some of these oils are formed that you see on the surface here. Those would be formed in the and maintained in the pockets. It's not that they don't exist, but they're not going to come to the surface on a roast like this. Here, getting close to or entering second crack, you've entered a phase where you've fractured that cellulose matrix, and the ingredients of those cell pockets can travel to the outside of the bean, which, if you're from the 80s and 90s, that was the mark of good quality, like this. Ooh, I like that oily coffee, that Starbucks Pete's oily coffee. But in fact, when those ingredients have traveled to the outside of the coffee, the oils and other compounds that come with it, those are available for oxidation, so they stale sooner. And when you get to in first crack, which is between these two, would have just been starting here and probably pretty well along here in this light city roast here, which would be, I think, a palatable roast, not grainy. What you have there is that you've reached the boiling point of water as it is in the coffee, and water vapor is being formed, steam. So the first crack is steam rupturing the coffee open. Second crack, which is normally happening through the crease, which you see the crease open up. Second crack is the fracturing of that sort of cellulose structure of the bean. So the main points that I wanted to make here are, you're looking at the shape, that sharp edge of the coffee from over here, very well defined. As the coffee expands, it kind of seems rounder. And then of course, when you get here, you see it's a very soft edge generally on the flat bean. Let's focus maybe on this one right here. It's become a rounded kind of edge. You see the size of the bean changing, which is telling you something. And you're seeing under a good light that surface texture. Now, this whole video came because I was chatting with a customer who walked in the store before the quarantine and said, I roast all my coffee until the surface texture is smooth. That's what he was looking for. But he wasn't enjoying the coffee he was roasting. He was roasting a dry process coffee. And, that can be because he's just using this sort of information that it's supposed to be smooth, and that's what good coffee looks like. You wonder if people have had the experience, since they don't generally travel with an LED light and a macro lens and look very closely at coffee that they've enjoyed from other roasters and scrutinized it under these lighting conditions, what would they see? So maybe they would see this, but what they were drinking was this. So maybe that importance of that smooth surface texture isn't so critical to enjoying the coffee. And that's what you're trying to figure out here, is what you enjoy. So basically, you have a very, very light city roast here. I would say it's going to have a lot of underdeveloped flavors, but be very bright, and some people would like that. Here you have nice development in a city plus roast. And here you're getting city plus to full city. And here you've fully entered second crack. Okay, well, I hope this is helpful in terms of just judging your own roasts. And the main point is that you're trying to figure out what you enjoy. So when you get what you enjoy, maybe save a small sample of it, hold it nearby under a good light while you're roasting, and try to see if you can match that and get better results that you like from your home roasting. Thanks.